Welcome to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast, your weekly news roundup of hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation stories from around the Gem State. Hosted by Fish and Game's Public Information Specialist, Connor J. Lease.
And welcome back to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. We got a special one for you this week. Regional Conservation Officer Justin Williams joins the Hook and Bulletin and recounts some of his favorite stories collected over 25 plus years wearing the Fish and Game badge. Williams, born and raised in good old Mackey, is one of a handful of Salmon Region conservation officers that patrol Salmon's Backcountry and the Frank Church Wilderness. If you've ever hunted, trapped, or fished in the Salmon region, or heck, even driven Highway 93, this episode is really going to paint a picture of the dry, steep, rugged remoteness that give this slice of backcountry its grandeur, and the tight-knit community of salmon and challis right at its doorstep. So without further ado, here we go.
A little unbiased.
Can't jump up and down.
Right. You still have to be like a little unbiased and be like, whoa, savages are amazing.
Yeah. Oh no, I still say that. Yeah. My wife's the basketball coach, so I get to announce. So I gotta spin it up good for her. Otherwise,
well, yeah. Then does she go back to and listen to the games afterwards after you know?
No, she doesn't ever go back and listen to them. But everybody will come and say, "Oh yeah, your husband did so good on the game," or yeah, whatever.
Who does a better job?
Announcing?
Yeah.
Well, I do because she coaches, right? So, but I do games with another guy named Jim Bob Infinger, which, with a name like Jim Bob, you got to be a good radio announcer. Right?
Yeah.
But he's done it forever. I've always kind of taken pride in the fact that when I announce games, I try to keep it positive. Even if the girls or the boys are losing by 30 or 40 points, you still try and pick those little positive things out. Because if you don't, the people in the community will really start getting negative about what's going on.
Absolutely.
So,
and
try and keep it going.
In a small town.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially football.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we are here up in Salmon, Idaho at the Salmon Regional Office, joined by Ben Bieri, who you've heard both before.
That's me.
Our digital content specialist. And our special guest today is Justin Williams. And Justin, you're the District Conservation Officer up here in the Salmon region.
Regional Conservation Officer.
Regional Conservation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not districts, we're regions.
That's right. Well,
don't look at my shirt. Sorry, because I was a District Conservation Officer, but I pulled this out of the closet this morning in the dark, getting ready for the commission meeting. So
he may not even be Justin Williams.
Yeah, I could be a totally different guy. Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
So Regional Conservation Officer. So.
Well, thanks for being here, Justin. We're going to cover all kinds of stories today and kind of ask you some general questions, both from like a hunter's perspective, I think too, but or hunters and anglers perspective, but also from an agency perspective too. Some of the things that you guys do on the field, and so starting off, I guess, have you been in the Salmon region your entire career?
No, I came to Salmon in 2004, and when I was previous to that, I was down in the Upper Snake region. So I started my career in 1996 as an enforcement technician, and we don't even have that position anymore. They dissolved that and turned those into officer positions, and that was just kind of an entry-level position where a guy could come in and you didn't do the full gamut of peace officer duties, but it was a great entry-level position, and then eventually you'd get promoted to an officer position. And so those don't exist anymore, but that started in 96, and then I had a couple of patrol areas down in southeast Idaho, one in Ashton, one in Island Park, and one in St. Anthony. And then when I promoted, my first promotion to District Conservation Officer, I came up to Salmon in 2004, and so I've been here ever since.
20 years.
20 years in Salmon, yeah. So
wow.
About 28 years total now.
Was Salmon the region that you'd always kind of had your sights on, or was it just kind of worked out?
It kind of worked out. It's interesting how things kind of come together, because if we got a second here, I'm driving to Idaho Falls from Idaho Falls to Boise to do an interview with a trainee I had, and my supervisor at the time calls me on the phone and he says, "Hey, while you're in Boise, go tell Chief Hagan," which was our chief at the time, "that you're interested in being the Salmon DCO. Get the experience interviewing." so I went and I interviewed for that. I told the chief, and then I came back a couple weeks later and I interviewed for that job. And like a week later, they called and offered me the job in Salmon. And I really didn't have my eye set on coming to Salmon, but I grew up not too far from here down in Mackay. And so my dad had been a conservation officer in the Salmon region for several years and had retired. And so I knew a lot of the guys from Salmon, and of course, just being in the business, I've been up here a few times. And my wife, I said, hey, you want to move to Salmon? And she's like, yeah, sounds good to me. And so we packed our stuff, sold our house, we moved to Salmon, and we've never regretted it. It's been a great move for us.
So you got to see firsthand from when you were a little kid, seeing your dad be a conservation officer.
Oh yeah. He was an officer for about 33 years, and he had been in Yellow Pine, so he'd been in Yellow Pine for about 4 years, and like a population of 6 people. And my mom says, Terry, let's move to the big city. So my dad says, all right, we're going to Mackay, 500 people. So
that would be a big change.
It was. She's like, I could actually buy regular milk. I didn't have to buy powdered milk anymore. So she was excited about that. But so he spent a whole career as an officer there, and great experiences. And that's where I learned how to ride motorcycles and snowmobiles and pack horses and mules and stuff like that. And kind of really get me excited about doing this type
that's
of work.
cool.
So you've known for a very long time.
Yeah. I had an aunt that one time told me that I was about 8 when I made the declaration to the family that I was going to be a conservation officer.
I can imagine what all those projects you do in elementary school. What are you going to be? What are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
And it all had the Fish and Game badge on there somehow.
Yeah.
You're drawing elk and fish and
and it was great because I had a dad that he really liked. Of course, back then it was a little easier to take and throw your kid in as a ride along, but we had a patrol. There was a patrol cabin up in Copper Basin, and we spent a lot of time there when we were younger as kids and as a family, and so. Doing horseback patrols into mountain lakes with him and riding motorcycles into the mountain lakes and stuff like that was just great. And of course, then I really kind of came to enjoy all the hunting and fishing and just the desire to protect natural things and you look at it and there's got to be somebody that's the gatekeeper for wildlife. And so I looked at that and I went, it's a pretty noble profession.
Absolutely.
So we'll go that direction. And so, and my brother, I got an older brother that he was a cop in Boise for 28 years. And so I've always told people that we're not smart enough to do anything but be cops. So we just made it work. And so, it's been good.
He didn't mind people. So that's what I'm taking away.
You
would rather.
It's a little different. Natural resource law enforcement is. I've never thought it was the same as beat cops, street cops.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys got tough jobs because when you go contact somebody, usually that person is at their worst, and so you're already starting kind of down a different path. And for us, when I'm driving down the road and there's some people fishing, and I pull in there to check licenses. I mean, they're on vacation. A lot of them are having their time of their life. Now that doesn't discount the fact that we pull in there and we have issues there. There's violations that we have to address. But, a lot of our contacts are just pretty casual, pretty normal compliance checks. And things go over pretty good. So
but I mean, from my understanding, that's probably one of the best case scenarios, right? Because from my perspective, you could also have the flip side of that going into a hunting camp.
Oh yeah,
and there's 6 hunters there that all have rifles.
And
that's the other side of it too. Is you have to be ready for. And I'm curious. We can get into that. It's at some point today. But I'm curious what goes through your mind in both of those scenarios as a conservation officer.
Yeah, it's interesting when I went to so we do go to the police academy. So we're certified peace officers for the state of Idaho. Right. So we'll go to the same police academy any other county or city or state law enforcement will go to. And so when we would go to the police academy, when instructors would come in and talk to us about what we do as game wardens, and they just couldn't believe that you're a single officer. 2, 3, 4. I mean, in Salmon region, you might be a couple of days from somebody else coming in to check on you.
That's wild.
And you walk in and check groups of hunters, and you train to be observant of things that are going on, read people's body language and things like that. And we get a lot of training on de-escalation as far as conversations or when you have a situation. And so, yeah, we do receive training that helps out on that. And then just, of course, on the job experience and so forth is a big benefit. But yeah, anyways, I think if you just always focused on that and was just totally nerved up every time you went in, you wouldn't last long in the job.
Probably not.
You just got to be aware of your surroundings and pay attention, but yet recognize that we can go in there and we can take care of business and things will be just fine.
Yeah.
We're just coming out of election season. And I was looking at the history of Idaho Fish and Game Enforcement, and I want to read just a couple things from our website that we have, and I'm going to assume everything on this page is correct because it is on our website and it's been vetted.
Yeah, you probably put it there.
I may have put it there. I don't know. I just post what people tell me to. So when Idaho first became a state, fish and game statutes were enforced by game wardens, political appointees who served at the pleasure of the governor. Can you imagine in 2024 being an elected official and like that's how you would serve? Could you that's a little mind-bending to me.
Yeah, it is to think that every 4 years you could potentially be looking for a
new job,
or a new
region, or a new who knows how that.
Yeah, exactly.
Could have moved through. So in 1938, a voter referendum established the Idaho Fish and Game Commission, which is why we're up here in Salmon, is to help with the commission meeting, which removed Fish and Game staff from direct political control and made possible a truly professional resource agency focused on a single mission, preserving and perpetuating fish and wildlife resources. And you talked about that earlier, about it just being a noble position.
Yeah, good thing to do for people that like the outdoors.
To preserve and protect. And if you're in Idaho, and if we have so many people that come into our state because we have done a good job of protecting and preserving all of our natural resources. And I mean, they wouldn't flock to hunt and fish here if we haven't done a good job. I'm sure there's argument over that, but I digress. Over the years, enforcement responsibilities expanded to include boating regulations, water resources, and state land statutes, and livestock rustling laws. How much livestock rustling?
If we got, I'm going to tell you this funny story. So when I was a kid, I remember coming back down, there was this road called Trail Creek Road, and I was with my dad that day, and he's working, and we're driving down Trail Creek Road, and there's this
outside of Ketchum.
Yeah, so it's over on the Mackey side, right? It goes from Ketchum Sun Valley over Trail Creek. Yeah, you can go south to Copper Basin, and then it comes over and hits Highway 93 between Chalice and Mackey, and then you go south to Mackey. So we're coming down Trail Creek Road, and there's this horse trailer parked in this corner, and there's a couple of guys out there like rounding up 3 or 4 cows. And my dad, of course, he'd been there for a lot of years and knew all the ranchers and folks up there, and he says, I don't recognize that truck or that horse trailer. And so we drove down the road and stopped and watched those guys load those cows in that horse trailer, and then my dad drove down there to see who it was that had loaded, and it turns out it was totally legitimate.
Oh, wow.
But his whole thing was, he's like, I don't know if that's somebody that's trying to take somebody's cows or not. So that is the one time in my career, and I would challenge anybody to come up with a time in their career that's working for us right now when they've even remotely got involved in a livestock rustling case. So,
that sounds like it sounds like a song you would write. Yeah. Connor, something like about livestock rustling.
Sounds like 1875.
Yeah. Right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Conservation officers handled most of this activity in addition to enforcing fish and game laws and collecting scientific data. Is there much scientific data that you're collecting that's not tied to, I guess we'd call it criminal activity?
Yeah, so we, even as an officer, you have your primary focus is to go out and do compliance checks and enforce fish and game laws. But, we operate under that same mission that everybody else in the department does. So like right now during hunting season, one of the things we try to do to support the wildlife program is CWD sampling. So every officer's got a CWD kit. So as you get your hands on deer and elk heads, we're supposed to be collecting samples for that. Fisheries, collecting fin samples for fisheries crews doing krill survey and stuff like that. We'll collect that information if there's a need for it. And honestly, the officers, I think part of the reason you get into this job is the diversity. So the ability to go out and work with biologists and do different projects is a big draw, a big attraction for guys to come to Idaho to work as a conservation officer.
Absolutely.
Justin, I got 2 questions for you.
Sure.
So did you have a background or come into the CO role from a biology degree, or did you go the biology route first?
So I knew, of course, we talked about it earlier, I knew I wanted to be a conservation officer. I mean, that's what I went to school for. So when I went to University of Idaho, I got a degree in wildlife resources, but they had some kind of like little subfocal areas you could go into. And so I went into, there was a policy, law, and administration emphasis, and then within that there was a law enforcement emphasis, which really it was 2 or 3 classes that I had the option of taking. So I do have a wildlife resources degree, so same undergraduate degree that a biologist would have, but there was some different focus there that I went into to focus me more towards the law enforcement end.
Gotcha, because that's probably half a dozen times in a situation, a public setting where I've been in a grocery store or whatever and had my shirt on. I've had...
You go into grocery stores without your shirt?
Sometimes, yeah.
Your fish and game shirt?
My fish and game shirts, yeah, I should clarify.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that better mental image.
Yeah,
thanks.
I've had some younger folks, probably 20s, 30s, ask like they're interested in the enforcement role side of things, whether being a cop or a game warden or whatever. But they see the fish and game badge, and one of the questions they ask is, well, do you have to have a biology degree? And I think they're curious, and you could probably speak way better than I could about it, but is that you guys, for conservation officers, you're coming into this field because you have a passion for protecting wildlife.
Right.
But the biology degree, can you talk about how you use that in your daily job as a conservation officer?
Yeah, so I think the part that helps with the biology degree, and there's I think the governor came up with a new directive now that there's not a state job that you actually need a degree for, right? But sometimes it's hard to qualify for some of those jobs unless you've got a pretty good educational foundation. And so, and then to be competitive, right? If you got everybody's got a degree, that just puts you up one more step. But that when you come in and look at what are you going to use from your degree, a lot of that is just that foundational biological knowledge it'd be like if you got a degree in marketing or a degree in business administration, you're probably not going to use that information every day, but it built you that foundation.
Sure.
And it gives you that ability to kind of talk the talk and walk the walk, so to speak, on a biological basis. And so having that degree that gives you that basic foundation for biology and for wildlife and fisheries and those processes, you're not going to use it every day, but it's definitely part of your foundation. And
is that one of the tools, do you think, in your tool belt that kind of can help you, give you an upper hand on solving different wildlife crimes that come up? Knowing how animals respond or where to look for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think back to when you're investigating something that's been, when you're digging through a carcass of an animal, anatomy and physiology comes to mind. Like what's gonna stop an animal from living, and how far can it? What's gonna be a quicker death versus a more long-term death? And those are things that you don't have to go to school to learn, but there's some of that stuff that helped kind of get you to that point to begin with. Mm-hmm. And so and there's some of that one of the things that I did in college that it sounds crazy, but some of the writing classes I had to take, and then like mediation and communications classes, those are probably things that for me have been more relevant in my career, because we do spend so much time dealing with the public that having an ability to communicate with people is paramount in this job. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I want to kind of shift into and segue into is the reason that we're up here. Obviously, you talked about it was for the commission meeting, but I've been wanting to talk to a conservation officer up here in Salmon for a long time, because salmon, from our perspective down in Boise, salmon's kind of the Wild West region where there's so much open country, steep country, rugged country. And I think one thing that most people don't realize is you guys have an incredible amount of country to cover per one person. And salmon, I remember the first time we came up here, it was brought up that you guys, I don't know if you can still do it, but patrol on horseback, patrol with planes. You guys fly into the backcountry. Obviously, salmon's kind of the front door to the Frank.
Yep.
So there's all these different, not hurdles isn't the right word, but all these different
nuance.
That you have to face. And obviously, you've been here 20 years, so you can probably tell all kinds of incredible stories, which is why we're here.
Yeah, yeah.
But can you kind of talk about that a little bit, about some of the nuances that you and your staff up here face with this kind of terrain?
Yeah, absolutely. This is probably the reason that I've stayed here for 20 years, because my other patrol areas, every about 2 to 4 years, I'd bounce to a new patrol area. And I think it's because I'd seen that patrol area and I'd gotten used to it. And I just had a desire to go explore new wild places. And so when I landed in Salmon, it's the region's incredible. There's so many different places to go to and so many places to visit. And honestly, even after being here for 20 years, there's still places I haven't been to yet. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to work, right? I'm 28 years in, eventually I got to go, I got to go find a rocking chair and a porch, right? Yeah. But no, I'm still having a lot of fun. But yeah, we have the Frank Church Wilderness, so over 2 million acres of wilderness. We have the White Cloud Wilderness, the Boulder White Cloud, the Sawtooth Wilderness. We've got the Middle Fork of the Main, which is, or the Middle Fork of the Salmon River, which is 99 miles of river. We've got the upper roadless section of the main Salmon River. So plus we've just got a lot of area that you just can't get to unless you're willing to either get on a horse or hike in there, motorcycle, ATV, snowmobile, like you say, airplanes. I run the jet boat on the main Salmon down below, and so when you're ready for some crazy jet boat stories and near-death experiences, we're ready to delve into that too. But the officers here, when we get ready to bring an officer on board here, there's just this expectation that you're ready for adventure, because when you put in on the main Salmon on the Middle Fork to do a patrol, you don't put on at 8 a.m. and expect to be home at 5 o'clock that night. Yeah. You'll be at home at 5 o'clock, but it's not going to be for 6 days. Yeah. So there's some eject points in there, some airstrips or stuff where if you had an emergency, you could leave. But when you put on at Boundary Creek and float to Cache Bar, you're 5 or 6 days on that trip. So just the time duration for those. And, some of the areas we patrol back into, we got an officer that covers the upper end of the Middle Fork, that some of the reaches of his patrol in there will be 30 or 40 miles on horseback. So, there's a lot of country to cover. And then of course it is fun. We've got airstrips in the Middle Fork, so we don't own our own planes, of course, but we charter with air service. And so we can go work those airstrips and check those hunters, again, collect that information for wildlife that they may need. And it's just a lot of fun. So a ton of different opportunities to get into the backcountry there. And backcountry really, in the last few years, it's just blown up. The number of people getting into the backcountry now has increased over the last several years, and people wanting that backcountry experience, the change in technology and equipment that's allowing people to get further in and stay longer. And I
assume you're not just talking about hunting season, you're talking about float season.
You're just
people hiking and camping.
Dang near year round. Because right now we're in the heat of hunting season, but when you start looking at people recreating into the winter, not as much then, but you start getting spring bear hunting, and you start getting summer float trips and into the high mountain lakes fishing and stuff like that. We're just the backcountry is just popular all the time anymore. So
that was going to be one of my questions too, is there a specific, with all those places that you just listed off, each of them could have their own high flow times, a lot more people fishing at one point, hunting at one point, obviously with our seasons and whatnot. But overall, I would assume winter's slower, spring and fall, and then summer with, all the things that go on up here and in this region.
Yes, we look at this time of year with the hunting season, and that's going to direct our focuses right in specific areas. But then as you get into, and winter is a slower time, just because of the access isn't as good. But then you get into spring, you got spring bear hunting and antler shed antler hunters, and then once we get into summertime, with fishing, so there are areas that you kind of shift your focus to throughout the year to try and find those recreationists that you can focus your efforts towards, and because really the investment you make to do a backcountry trip is pretty big, and so both time wise and expense wise to make these trips happen. So you want to make these a good trip and a productive trip, and so we want to our job is to go back there and contact hunters and anglers. And so that's where we're going to try and focus our time at, is trying to find hunters and anglers. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago about being near airstrips or places for immediate emergency situations. Have there been any emergency situations that you can think of in your 20 years up here?
I haven't ever had to pull an eject button yet to get out. I've had a few times where we've weathered in for a few extra days in the fall where, you get a storm that moves in and you better have a few extra mountain houses in your pack because it's going to be a few days to get out. But we can swap folks in and out. We did a river trip this summer where we had some officers that could only make part of the trip work. So, midway down the river, we can get them out in a plane and get a new supply of officers in there to help out with that trip. But I had a family deal this last summer that we were waiting on some information on a family member. So it's nice to know that, hey, here's a few places that if I needed to, I could get to that airstrip to get out. But then you get to a point where it's like once you get below a certain airstrip, you're about 2 days from getting back out to the road. So there is no eject button at that point. It's just you just got to keep going and push forward. So, but we've flown. We've not had to get our folks out, but we several years ago, myself and another officer were back in the Middle Fork working fall hunters, and there's several backcountry ranches there along the Middle Fork, and we were staying at one of our properties near the Flying Bee, and a couple of their employees came over and said, hey, there's an emergency up at Cougar Ranch, and they told us who there was two guys from Salmon, and they said one of them had a horse accident and broke his neck and broke his back and broke his leg, and they need help getting out. And of course I'm trying to calculate out here. I think we're like 26 miles, horse trail miles from getting to that next to Cougar Ranch. So we finally go get a hold of so they said, hey, can you go call this person back in Salmon and get the details? And so I go back and I call and talk to my boss, and he gives me the information of what happened. And so come to find out, they had life flighted the guy that had the horse wreck out already. Okay. And fortunately, he rolled off the hill off a trail and landed right on the airstrip dang near. So they were able to come in and fly him out with it. Yeah. Good aim. Unfortunately, he was like 6'4", and he was a big dude. So the helicopter pilot was a little nervous that they weren't going to get him out, that they're going to have to go burn some fuel for a while and come back and grab him.
They took the horse instead.
Yeah. They had to stick him in kind of cockeyed in the back of the helicopter to get him out of there. But so they get him out, but then the other guy still left in there, right, with 8 head of stock. Well, we didn't realize this, but on the way in, they were trying to clear some trail, and he had popped a hernia, and so he wasn't able to lift anything. And so here he's got this 8 head of stock, and he's 33 miles from the trailhead. And so we went ahead and rode up and helped him get geared up, and a couple other guys flew in that were friends, and actually another department employee that was, you go back in there and you just don't take anybody back in there wrangle stock and to help get stock out. I mean, you got to have some stock savvy because it's some rough country in there. So they fly a couple other guys that are pretty savvy cowboys, and so we get all the stock together, and it took us a couple days to get everything lined out and get them up out of there. But it's those airstrips are important back there to have, and the department owns some property that has airstrips on it, and it's great to have those, and it helps in our patrol efforts, and it gets great access for hunters and anglers to get in there and enjoy that wilderness, and to be able to also have those experiences back there. So
that also, I'm also hearing too, just the beauty of working in a small community, that if you need help, you have some other resources too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's Salmon's a great place. It's not. When I moved here, people said, "Yeah, it's poverty with a view, or a great place to starve to death," and I truly believe that. It's a great, and the people here in Salmon they've just been awesome. They're very good. I've worked in a couple other communities, and I felt like I've always got along with people in these other communities. But I remember when I moved here, one of the more veteran officers that had been here several years said that he had not worked in a place that had better support for a fish and game agency than Salmon, and I really do think that that's true. I think people in Salmon, they're hunters, they're fishers, they're recreators, and that doesn't mean we always agree.
Sure.
But I always feel like the community supports what the agency's trying to accomplish, and so I appreciate that about this community.
Yeah. And I guess that one of the things I wanted to ask you too, hearing that you've spent 20 years in Salmon, and you've had some other scattered experiences, mostly on the eastern side of the state, is when we talk about our 7 regions, they're all obviously different, and your experience is Salmon and eastern.
Right.
And I think when you look at our regions, you could say, hey, we've got some desert ecosystems, we've got some real deciduous, we've got a lot of stuff.
Right.
What do you think is? I mean, you're going to give glowing reviews of Salmon, anyways.
Oh yeah.
But what is something about Salmon that is just like can't be beat? In the agency, we did a thing called New Employee Tour, and every region says we're the best region.
Yeah.
Come here, come work with us.
Yeah.
We're the best. We're the best. What do you think Salmon? What do you think sets Salmon apart? And giving credit to all the other ones, they're all different. Everything's going to have difference. But what is it that is like, man, this just can't be beat here?
Yeah, I think maybe for me, and it probably goes back to growing up in a small town, right? So growing up in Mackay, 500 people, and just my whole career has been in small communities. I spent time in Island Park and in Ashton and St. Anthony, and so I'm living in these smaller towns. And so for me, Region 7 is that the whole region is that small town atmosphere, right? So we're in the metropolis of Region 7, and that's Salmon at 3,200 people, right? 8,000 people in the county.
Yeah.
I mean, we're maybe 11,000 people in the whole region, right? Residents, 11,000. So I think for me, that's an attraction. I like that that community feel. And I think we can have a connection with the community, and not just the constituents that we deal with, but we can be connected to that community. I love the remoteness here, and I love the diversity. We talked about it, but we got you go out towards Leadore, up the Lemhi, or out the Passamaquoddy, you've got that high desert country. You can go out North Fork direction, you got timbered country, you've got wild and scenic rivers, we've got a jet boatable river, we've got mountain lakes, we've got motorboat lakes, we've got every big game species that you could try and hunt.
We saw that last night.
We did.
Yep.
Yeah.
We sure did.
We marked every single one of our bingo card last night.
Yep.
Yeah, so elk, deer.
Yeah, we had elk,
sheep.
We had 3 or 4 bucks.
Yep.
Just several herds of elk, chucker, sandhill cranes, turkeys, We had 2 rams in
rams.
full rut.
Yep.
About 5 feet from our bumper.
Yep.
With
They didn't care,
5 or 6
oddly
ewes.
enough.
Yeah.
Nope, didn't care. Just right up there by North Fork. But yeah, it was unbelievable.
So you guys are seeing it. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh
you're
yeah, well we
seeing what
saw
the
it. We
attraction
saw it during
is here,
NEOT
right?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we
first
floated.
hand.
Yeah.
We floated the North Fork, and they're like, "Yeah, you might see some bighorns."
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they were like right at the takeout where the barbecue was happening. It was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, man, they must have planned this.
Yeah,
you
they
guys
just
did it
let
right."
'em out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, that's the other thing is when you go out, you see game regularly,
Yeah.
You don't have to go very far to find a deer to look at or an elk or a sheep or something like that. And you get up towards, you get up the Lemhi and you find some, we're on our way to over into the big city last week, and we saw a couple moose along the way, and so it's just neat to see that stuff. And I know in other places of the state you see game, but to me, in the areas I've worked, it's just game is just available here. It's just wherever you go, you can
Yeah.
find deer and elk and sheep and.
So for all of our 15 listeners, they're all, guess what? Your community just got a little bigger.
Yeah.
They're all moving up the
Oh,
same.
actually, salmon's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the worst place.
It's
in the
minus
state to
15
live.
right now
Yeah,
outside.
Yeah, it's cold and it's going to snow and everything's going to
Forever cold, even in July. Always minus 15.
Yeah.
Always minus 15. So I think we want to just hear about some of your time up here too. I think one of the most intriguing things is when we talk to people within our agency, everybody's got stories. Everybody's got the good ones, bad ones. Just to be able to impart some fun stuff on people.
Yeah.
And I sent you some stuff ahead of time, and one of my questions was, well, I had a lot of questions, but
Hopefully I can make my stories actually match your questions,
well,
right?
hopefully.
We'll see how it all comes.
I'm sure,
If not, they'll be entertaining anyways, right?
Yes. Entertaining is really what we're looking for.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yeah.
So whether they're true or not, just make them entertaining.
I'll try and get more towards the true side than the fiction side.
I got one to start off. I want to hear about your most miserable day in the field.
Oh, do you want like the most miserable? And I don't know if this is the most miserable day, but when you got that one, do you want like a backcountry one, or do you just want like my worst miserable day in salmon
Like salmon proper, like in town?
No, like in the salmon region. Because I was
Probably-
thinking kind of when we talked about stuff, it's like, backcountry game warden and then salmon game warden. And I thought I did think of one it's fairly remote, the area that I had to go into, but it's, it was all roaded section. Except for the part where I had to pack the cow elk off the side of the mountain and ford across in the drift boat to get it back over to the truck. So, but yeah, if you want just like a day that was just like, oh, is this ever going to end?
I like both, but I like the fact that you drew a line of distinction between backcountry CO and a salmon, like a regional CO.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah. The town officer that's got to patrol the 3,000
No, but even just
people.
like a normal CO, because not every region has wilderness per se, or
Right,
backcountry area. So.
Right.
I think that's interesting.
I can kind of tie it in because it started with this whole day started the day before with and we were doing a horse patrol in an area that's it's mostly there are some camps that guys will pack in there, but it's not one that we can't go in, and if we make a long day of it, we can go in and check hunters in a day and get back out. So we had rode in there and we checked a group of deer hunters, and there was 2 or 3 of them in the group, and so we asked for licenses and tags, and one of the guys had a license, but he could not come up with his deer tag. And so we were like, oh, and he says, I bought my, and everybody else was good, and he said, I bought my deer tag. I know I bought my deer tag. And so we said, okay, so hunting without a valid tag is a violation, right?
Yeah.
So
I have a really quick question though. You said you're like 23 miles in.
no, we're 2 or 3 miles.
2 or 3. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Your
heard that wrong.
imagination is
We
awesome.
will
I
do a
heard that
20-mile round trip like in a day, right?
Oh, okay.
To
No,
check if we're really moving. But this one wasn't that far. But we're probably we're on our way out, but we're probably 2 or 3 miles from the trailhead.
Okay.
As we're coming out, and we check these 2 or 3.
So you're on a trail though.
We're on a trail.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not bombarding cross country. That's one thing in Salmon. There's not a whole lot of, I mean, you've seen how steep it is here. If you don't have a trail under your feet, you're probably not going to go there in some of the country, right? So we're bebopping down this trail, and we check these guys, and so he doesn't have his tag, and so he tells us where he's staying, and so we give him the kind of the benefit of the doubt. We know where he's at. He's coming out of this area. We know what motel he's staying in and everything, and so we said, well, we're going to go check your license history and see if you actually bought a tag. And if you did, everything's good. If not, then we'll be getting back in touch with you. So of course, I have his license information. So we have where he lives, and, he'd had his driver's license with him. So we had all of his address, phone number, everything like that, his itinerary. So we go back out, and I go home, and I look him up on the computer, and he doesn't have a deer tag. He didn't buy a deer tag. And so I'm like, well, here this guy's out hunting deer, so I'm going to have to go catch up to him. Yeah. Well, he gave me his phone number, and he said, if I don't have a deer tag, please call me. And I'm like, okay. So I call him on the phone, and he won't answer. And the first time it rings a few times, and then it shuts off, and I'm like, okay, we all know what that is. He's just sliding the ignore button over, and then the next couple times I call, it just goes straight to voicemail. So I'm like, all right, this guy's trying to dodge me. So I knew the motel he was staying at, and I knew what he was driving because I'd seen his truck at the trailhead. So the next morning I get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I drive to the motel, and I'm going to sit and wait for him to come out to go hunting that morning, and then I'm going to go over and, of course, issue him his citation. So I do. I sit there, and about 6:30 in the morning, they finally come out of the motel. So I contact him, tell him he didn't have a tag, deal with everything there. So then I turn around, and one of the officers had called me that night before and said, hey, can you help me with an interview today on I can't remember what the issue was with the elk, but it was an illegal elk. And I said, yeah, that'll be fine. So I met him in town, and we did that interview. And then as we're finishing up that interview, I get a call, and I don't know where our North Fork officer was at, but he was either working on something else or not available. We got a call of a guy that there was a bull only hunt going on, just our general bull tag, and we got a call of a guy that had killed a cow. And so I had the information from the guy that reported it. So I cruised down to clear down so I've been from Salmon to North Fork, back to Salmon. Now I've got to go clear to North Fork and then down the river road, clear down to this little place called Colson Creek. So I boogie down to Colson Creek and find the guy that shot the cow and deal with that. Well, the cow's up on the hill, so I go up there and I quarter this cow up, and I've got my pack frame and a drift boat to get back across because it's on the opposite side of the river. And so I get up there, and I'm just like, man. And so my day started at 4, and now I'm on to my third case, which is great because that's what you want. You're excited when you're a game warden, right, to stay busy. So I packed this cow elk off. Well, on the way down, I'd taken a couple of loads already, and so I had like a back leg and a front shoulder left, and I was like, I'm not going to make another trip up on this hillside to get it. I'm just going to take it. So I put the back leg on my pack frame, and I just grabbed the shoulder and threw it over my shoulder, and was just kind of resting it on the pack frame and in the crook of my neck and my shoulder. So as you can imagine, when I get down, of course I'm in my uniform, so it's just, my uniform's just a mess. Yeah. And I get down, and I'm like, man, I cannot wait to get home. And so I get in my truck, I get the elk loaded, I get the boat squared away, and I'm headed back to Salmon. And I get to this little place called just by Ram's Head, and this truck's just flying down the road, and they stop, and they're waving and flashing their lights at me and everything, and they said, hey, some guy we don't know what the medical issue is, but he just went down. He's at the Owl Creek boat ramp. So I'm like, oh boy. So I flip on my lights, and I race over there, and the guy he had either a heart attack, but he was just laying in the middle of the road. So I called the sheriff's office and ordered Lifelite. Now, Lifelight's great in a community like this because Lifelite, it took them 22 minutes to get there, which is a long time, right? But it took the ambulance 2 hours to get there. And that's just a fact. I mean, it's a long way down there, and to get the volunteers there and to get there. But so anyways, we worked on the guy, and unfortunately things didn't turn out for him. But by the time we tried to go find out if he had anybody else there with him to make those contacts and help get the vehicle squared away and everything, I think I rolled home at like I don't know, 2:00 in the morning the following day. So
Wow.
like about a 22-hour day or something like that. But I gotta tell you, when I went to try and find the guy's trailer to see if there was anybody else up there with him, I knocked on the neighboring door of the trailer next to him that had some lights on, and the guy that answered the door, I'd gone to high school with his daughter.
Wow.
He's from Mackey. Yeah, he's up there fishing, and so shout out to Gail. I'm not going to go his last name, but you'll know who it is if he listens to it.
That's awesome.
And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to check on this guy." And he said, "No, he's been by himself." So I kind of explained why I was there. And he said, "Hey, come in and let my wife make you a sandwich." And I am here to tell you, to the day, that is the best sandwich
yeah.
I have. She was
What
so
kind of
nice. She
sandwich?
packed. Oh, it was just like a
Cheese and mayo and pepper kind of sandwich.
Well, like a ham, but with horseradish and mayonnaise. But it wasn't like store bought, thin sliced processed ham. It was like a ham, like the sliced up ham. So it was so dang good. So I was so grateful to Gail and Pam. It was so good for them to do that. But it was a long day, but there was just so much stuff going on that day. And you go from really good stuff, and then you have one of those medical emergencies, and it's kind of one of those that it's just like, not things didn't work out so good, but it's you're out there trying to do good things for the community and for the public, and sometimes you're thrust into that situation. And that's the thing about officers, right? I mean, you work in these remote areas, and it doesn't matter if you're a game warden in Salmon or Coeur d'Alene or Boise. There's a chance that throughout your career, and probably more than once, that you're going to be the first responder to a situation that's going to make you have to take control and make some major decisions that could or could not help somebody down the road. So anyway.
Do you guys receive first responder training at all, or have some sort of courses or classes you take?
So just basic first aid and CPR. And then some guys, we've got some guys that throughout their career have done more. We've had some guys work for me that are advanced EMTs and so forth. But there's guys that have received additional training for medical stuff. And there's some really great backcountry first aid stuff, because it's different. If you can't land a helicopter or get an ambulance there, it's like the guy that broke his back rolling down the hill on his mule wreck. That guy's got to lay there until they can get a helicopter back into the backcountry. And I don't know what their duration on that. I'm assuming he probably laid there for a couple hours. So immobilization and treating for shock and things like that. It's not just for a few minutes. It can be for a few hours or maybe even overnight till you can get.
Particularly in a smaller, vaster area, smaller community, vast backcountry area.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be able to wear a lot of hats. You've got to be that utility person that can.
Yep.
Well, look at Billy Bob. Jim Bob. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Jim Bob.
Yes.
Look at him, man.
So spin this back. When we were talking about the mule wreck, Jim Bob was the first person that called.
Oh.
Because he knew the guys. And so he called my boss and said, "Hey, is Justin by chance in the Middle Fork?" And Dave said, "Yeah, he is." And he said, "We got to get him to go help."
That's right.
To help Joe and Roy get out of there. So
what a guy.
I think he's the linchpin to Salmon.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
Now, did you ever catch that feller that was going back to the first checking deer tags?
Oh yeah. So I found him right at first in the morning.
Oh, okay.
I got him about 6:30 in the morning.
Gotcha.
At the motel. He came out and so
God, that is a busy day, man.
It was good though. It was good. So
we were at a commission meeting in May, and we heard a story of what was it, an alligator, crocodile, something.
Oh,
in Lake Coeur d'Alene. I think it was an alligator.
I think I remember this.
And somebody didn't believe it.
Like finding a dead one.
They got a call.
Or got a call, yeah.
And said, "Hey, out on this rock at this place on Lake Coeur d'Alene, there's an alligator. We don't believe you."
And it was alive, though.
It was alive.
Yeah.
4 hours later, they get a call. "Hey," from a different person, "there's an alligator out here." So they said, "Okay, that's 2 calls in 4 hours. We should probably
go
look at
check
this."
it out.
Yeah. That's pretty random to me.
Oh yeah.
Like that's top randomness.
That would be of weird stuff.
Yeah.
That would be in that. Yeah, that'd be definitely in that.
What is your
top 10?
What if you could put, again, back to the story. What's your alligator? What's your most random day? Is it
So this is. I'm glad you guys sent me some of this because it was really fun to go back like through some
reminisce
about some stuff and go, wow, this that was actually kind of cool. So one day I get a call from the sheriff's office, and it was in the fall, and it was well after dark. I mean, we're talking 9-10 o'clock at night, and they called and said, hey, a guy just hit a deer right outside of town, just 93 South, right at the big pullout across from Hoffman's. And I said, and that's the great thing about a small town, it's like, hey, just go down to, that barn at Joe's place and take a right and go down to Pete's and then take a left. And it's the greenhouse on the, it's like, we don't need no street names here.
Yeah.
You just, cause everybody. So I said, okay. And they said, yeah, he hit this deer with his truck and trailer. I'm thinking, all right. So I pull up there, and the guy's pulled off the side of the road, and he gets out and he walks back to my truck, and he says, this buck deer hit my trailer. And what had happened is he's driving down the road, and he sees this doe in his peripheral coming across the field, and she jumps the fence and is coming. And so he's slowing down, and she comes through the borrow pit and runs right in front of his truck. Well, as he's watching her go, and he's probably at this point going maybe 30, 35 miles an hour, because he had slowed down. I mean, it's 65 now, right? But he had slowed down seeing this doe coming. And then he catches a glimpse of something, and he looks just in time to see this little buck that's chasing this doe. It's fall, right? November. The guy was coming up stillhead fishing.
Okay.
And so this buck comes running across the highway and tries to jump the back of his truck to follow that doe, and he hits that deer with his camp trailer, with the front of his camp trailer.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's not the weird part. So I said, well,
he's still moving at this point. He's
moving. Yeah, he's like 30, 35 miles an hour. So he has this collision with this deer.
So he tried to jump the hitch.
He tried to jump, over the bed of the truck, over the hitch, between the truck and the trailer, right? So imagine the truck, the trailer, and this Olympic high jumping deer comes flying over the bed of his truck, he gets his timing off because the trailer and the deer impact.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, where's the deer? And he said, well, it's in the trailer. We're still not to the weird part yet.
Oh my gosh.
So I pull my flashlight out, and I walk around and I shine my light through, and it's one of these older trailers, right?
Yeah.
Like the old kit companions with the louver front, the fiberglass front. It busted right through the glass window, the plexiglass window, and there's the bed in the very front of the trailer, and I shine my light on there, and lo and behold, here's this buck deer looking at me, and he's just laying on the bed, still alive.
Wow.
Went through the window, got hit by the truck, went through the window, and he's laying on the bed. And so I'm, all right, well, I guess we got to get him out of there. And the unfortunate thing was I had my video camera with me, and I'm like, this is going to make a great video.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to run the camera and wrangle the deer at the same time.
Yeah.
Now I got to get in the trailer and get the deer out. So I said, all right, sir, I'm going in your trailer to get the deer out, but would you do me a favor? And I'm going to give you my camera, and would you record this for me? Because this is Jay Leno.
They won't believe me.
Nobody's going to believe this story. Yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Yep.
So anyways, I give him the camera, and I had already pressed record, and I said, just hold the camera and film everything. Well, he grabbed the camera and pushed the record button, thinking that he needed to turn it on, and turned it off, and he walked around the whole time and didn't. I mean, all it records is, hey, sir, take my camera and record this. This is going to be awesome. So I get in there and grab the deer, and we have a wrestling match, and I drag him out the door and kick him off in the borrow pit. And so anyways, it was, so that's one of those that you don't get a call every day that something like that happens.
No.
But it was kind of neat, but
That's
anyways.
wild, man.
Yeah. So that guy, I'm like, you'll never have another story. I mean, this is going to be the most memorable stillhead fishing trip you've ever had. And it didn't even involve a stillhead. Yeah. So anyway.
Caught a deer.
Yeah. Caught a deer with his camp trailer.
Deer with my camp
With his camp trailer. Yeah.
Now, Justin, one of the questions that I've had a burn for a conservation officer is I had somebody ask me, I think a couple weeks ago, because we ran into a conservation officer while we were hunting and just, chatted with them a bit and told them I work for Fish and Game and all that. But it started making me think, like, they're out here every single weekend. I don't know if they're out Monday through Friday, but every weekend, I'm assuming, during hunting season. And every time I've ran into a conservation officer during hunting season, it's always been positive. But I've always wondered in the back of my mind, like, do they ever have time to hunt themselves?
Oh yeah. You can slip away a little. So I mean, that's one thing that probably got guys into this. And when we hire officers, you're talking about education and stuff, but man, if you're looking at down the road being a game warden, hunt, fish, trap, do all that stuff, because those experiences are going to help you out tremendously. So a lot of the guys we want to hire people that like to hunt, fish, trap, because two things, you can talk the talk, right? Like you can understand what people are talking about. And that helps an officer relate to the people he's working with, right? Like if a guy is selling shoes and he doesn't know what shoelaces are, he's not going to be a very good shoe salesman, right? So it's the same thing in game wardening. If you can talk the talk, it helps you out tremendously. It gives you some street cred with your constituents, right? So for me, I like to work during hunting season, and I do get some time here and there off, and I encourage officers, because it's a good mental break for them too, to get out and do some hunting. And I'm not just talking an afternoon, which, in salmon, it's nice because you can slip out and the game's available here. So you can slip out for a day or for an afternoon or something.
Well, it used to be before yesterday.
Before yesterday.
Never mind.
So, and then you can kind of pick some, we have some of these shoulder season hunts that aren't right during our meat and potatoes time of hunting, general deer and general elk season. We've got some controlled hunts that, if you can draw those tags, that makes it's not quite as busy at that point in time to get out and go. So, but no, I think it's important for officers to get that time if they want to go spend some time hunting. And for me, it was a big thing with my kids. My kids love to hunt. And so it was always fun to get them out in the field and have a good time hunting. So anyway.
What was it like hunting with your kid for the first time?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of what the first animal my kids are all, I only have one kid left at home, right? So I got a daughter that's a senior, and then we'll be empty nesters. And then, I just imagine this, but when people say, what's it going to be like when you don't have any kids left? Have you ever watched the show Braveheart? When Mel Gibson with the M yells, freedom. And I'm like, that's going to be me. But
you and Barry are about in that same boat.
Yeah.
Got another year or two left for your kids.
Yeah. So my oldest boy, he's been gone for several years, but or been out of the house for several years. But I think it was probably a deer that was probably his first animal he shot, big game animal. But it's fun because he loves to hunt, and so to watch him get out and have that experience. And it was just, the first couple animals he shot were doe deer and a cow elk. Yeah. And it was just really exciting for him.
That's awesome. How did you know he had the bug from her? Like what was the first sign that he gave that he had the bug early on?
So if you got time, we'll throw out this other story. Of course. So we're, he's 8. And so I drew this cow elk tag, and it was around Thanksgiving time that I had this tag. And so, but we had kind of a little operation going on a group of guys that we were trying to kind of monitor some activities. And so I'd drawn the night shift. And again, this is another like game warden all night story. So I kind of watch what's going on. And anyways, it develops into a really late, like starting close to 10 o'clock at night, but it rolls all the way into the early hours of the next morning. So I think I roll into my house like at 5 o'clock in the morning after being gone since 8 or 9 o'clock that night. So I get back home, and I told my son, I said, so they go to, it was either a Friday or a Saturday, and our kids only go to school 4 days a week because they're really smart, so they don't need that extra day of education. So anyway, so it was a Friday or Saturday, and I said, hey, Call, we'll go hunting tomorrow morning. And he's 8. And so I get home, and I come sneaking in the house, not wanting to wake anybody up, and I'm pulling all my uniform stuff off, and I hear this little footsteps coming up the stairs, and it's Call. And he's like, hey, is it time to go hunting? And I said, no, I'm just getting home from work. I need to grab some sleep. And he's like, well, what time are we leaving? And I said, give me like an hour. Okay, just give me an hour to just to catch a little sleep before we go out. And so I lay down on the couch, and that kid, like a hawk, he perched on the arm of that couch and just sat there. and watched and
Watch the
watched and
clock.
watched. Yeah, and at 6 o'clock, so he wakes me. He's like, "Hey, it's been an hour," and I don't know. I mean, it's this time of year, right? So it's probably not going to get light till 7:30 or something. So I said, "Hey, just give me a few more minutes." And so about every 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm finding I just as well get up and go. And so we went and hiked into an area and we found some cows. We didn't get close enough to shoot one, but yeah, he just ate that stuff up. And then we did I killed a bull a couple years, like the next year, and he went in to help me pack it out, and he just loved it. And he always loved horses ever since he was a little kid. And then that's what he does now is he's a horse wrangler for the BLM down in Nevada. So
Oh, wow. What a job,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. You run down there and talk about wrangling wild
Yeah,
horses
be
if
cool.
you want. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, he's just really enjoyed that. So his first elk hunt, I mean, it's a cow elk hunt, but he's
Yeah.
just like, Dad, I want to go pack in and I want to set up a wall tent and camp and shoot a cow. And I'm like, well, I don't want to spoil my kid's dreams. So
Yeah.
so we packed in 6 miles to shoot a cow elk that we could have shot off the,
Yeah, the parking lot.
100 yards off the side of the road. So, but you build those experiences. And so, when we're out checking folks, that's fun to watch those people out there having those experiences and creating those memories with their families. And I think there's kind of that special bond, and my kid and I, we still talk hunting stories.
Yeah.
And even the other 3 kids too enjoy that stuff, but
That's so neat, man. That's Call. You said, is that
Call, yeah,
Captain Call from Lonesome Dove?
You betcha.
Is that where he gets his
That's
name?
where it came from.
I love it, man.
Yep,
It's my
Captain
favorite
Call.
book.
So I tried to talk my wife into naming the other kid Woodrow, and
Oh,
she
nice.
couldn't handle the nickname Woody. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah,
well,
I don't-
whatever.
I
So
don't-
Woody wouldn't
blame
go
her.
over too in
Yeah.
2024.
yeah,
Middle school would have been tough.
Yeah.
middle school would have
Yeah.
been tough. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah. So yeah. Shout out to Call. He's the oldest, and so yeah.
I love that, man.
He's it was good. It was good. We had a lot of fun. So yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
I don't want to keep any longer, Justin.
We could just.
Oh, I could do this all day long,
yeah,
man.
just keep.
Oh
listening
yeah,
to
well
you.
we'll have to do like phase 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a year and come back and
Another-
because I think
yeah.
of all the stories that I had that I'm like, oh man, there's so many other ones that are probably way better than what we talked about. But
Yeah.
Oh, and you're probably
anyways,
not.
when I write my book, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Write your book.
Yeah.
I've read a few books, self-published, but a few books by former conservation officers in different states, and they've been mind-blowing.
Oh yeah.
So you definitely need to write a book.
Yeah, I don't know. I always thought, I should keep better track of all this stuff we've done over the years. But I wished my dad. I mean, that guy had just the most incredible stories as an officer, because those, the department's pretty professional now, right? And I'm not saying they weren't back in those days,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think they had a little more artistic liberties back
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
40s,
times have
50s,
changed.
60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, there's an expectation, which absolutely there should be, but just some of the stuff that his bosses did when he was early in his career.
Yeah.
Just some of the stories are just incredible. I wished he'd have wrote all that stuff down, but
Some of the
anyways.
tactics too are
Yeah.
pretty
When I think
incredible.
books and conservation officers, I think of Patrick McManus and
Oh, yeah,
and just
yeah.
referring to wardens as the mist.
Oh yeah.
They're always
Yeah.
they're
They're
there
always
1
there.
minute and gone, and
Yeah.
the next you never know.
Yeah, there's
where
that
they're
little meme that's like there's these people that come out of nowhere and
Yeah.
scare you and surprise you or whatever, make your heart race and your blood pressure go up, and they're called game wardens. I'm like that.
Yeah.
And that it's funny because you talk about, when we talk about salmon and backcountry stuff, and it is cool when you ride into a camp or when you check some fishermen at a mountain lake or you make a contact and you're way back in there and people say, I never would have expected to see the game warden.
Yeah.
I'm like that's perfect. That's what we're after. So anyways, it's fun to make those contacts and that's a memory for that person. So
Absolutely.
make it positive and it's all good.
So I want to leave with this too. I know you guys don't do this alone, particularly in these communities, the smaller communities throughout the state of Idaho.
Right.
You guys don't do it alone. So what can we leave? We have a couple initiatives through Idaho Fish and Game, but what can we leave for the people that are listening to this? If they see something, if there is something for them, how can they help?
Yeah, Citizens Against Poaching, or our CAP hotline, 1-800-632-5999. And I tell folks that, when people are trying to decide, should I call or not, what I tell them is I would rather get 100 calls and make one case than get no calls and make no case. And honestly, some of the stuff we get, it may not turn into anything. It may not even be a violation. It just may be somebody suspicious about something. But if people are paying attention and will call that number and let us know, let us go make that determination. And so I tell them that I will not make 100% of the cases that you don't call on. No guarantee I can make a case on everything you call on, but I guarantee you I will not make a case on stuff you don't call on.
Yeah.
And we really, we really rely on the public to be our eyes out there in the field. There's 111 officers statewide, but that includes bureau personnel, that includes supervisors, that includes field supervisors, RCOs like myself.
The guys we have at headquarters that are there all the time.
Yeah, that are keeping all the things functioning behind the scenes.
All
right?
the administrative stuff.
All the canines.
The canines. We've got investigators and everything. So we need the public. We need people to pay attention and watch what's going on out there. And so I think there was something on there, Ben, that talked about things that people can gather. Should we run through that?
Yeah, we have what we've called the Be a Good Witness program, and that was developed by one of the officers, Brian Jack. Yep.
I betcha.
And he has 5 things that people can remember to do when they come across something. And with cell phones anymore, it's really easy to document this stuff. So
just make sure you hit record.
Yeah, hit record.
Yeah,
make sure you know how to take that photo.
If you give it to somebody else, make sure you tell them it's already on. Don't push the button.
Yep. So if you want to rifle through those, go for it.
Yeah, you betcha. So real quick, I would say one of the biggest things that helps us is vehicles. And we're gonna talk about these 5 and we can get particular, but if you observe something, and let's say you watch somebody, maybe it's buck only season and you see him shoot a doe, okay, recognizing that right there. Okay, so what's our violation? We have a guy that just shot a doe in a buck only season. All right, so where are you at? Well, I'm at and if you give a name of a drainage, make sure that it's something that we can relate back. And we've got ISP, Idaho State Police Dispatch, does our CAP calls for us. So if you call that 1-800-632-5999, you're going to get an ISP dispatcher. And they're great because they'll prompt you to help gather this information up because they need to get it to the right officer in the right region. So when you start talking to them, they're going to want to know drainage, and they're going to want to know nearest town, things like that, so they can get the right officer. And because you can imagine how many deer creeks and bear creeks and whatever there are in the state of Idaho, right? There's a lot of creeks. So we got to kind of get specific on our directions. We need to know what it was that was poached, or what the violation is. We need to know what the person that violated the rule was. Now, here's the thing is people change clothes, they change hats, they change jackets, things like that. So we need distinguishing features. Can you tell how tall the person is? Were you close enough to see did they have a beard or not? They have anything special, tattoos, stuff like that, the kind of gun they were shooting, all that type of information. And then if you can get us vehicle information, that is awesome. And so in particular, license plate. And I want to let people know, don't do something that's crazy or dangerous to get this information. Number one priority is that witness's safety. So they need to stay safe when they do that. But if they can get us a license plate number, that's excellent. And even if you can't, try and get us a partial, at least the state. And then the other thing is note stuff with the vehicle. If it's a white Chevy, that's not going to do us a lot of good because that's the most common, other than a white Ford, that's the most common vehicle that's on the road. But is there a toolbox? Is there mag wheels? Is there stickers in the window? Is there a brush guard? What's distinguishing about this vehicle? Real quick, we had a case one time where the guy called and he said, I watched this red Chevy truck shoot a doe deer, and it was buck only season. And he said, but there was an American Eagle flag in the back window, or an American Eagle with a flag sticker in the back window. And I was like, man, a red Chevy, that's going to be tough. But I'm like, we're going to do this, guys. We're going to make the case. And so I went down to that area and I kind of patrolled around for a while that afternoon. Well, I kind of got word out to the camps that, hey, we're kind of looking for this red truck with an American Eagle sticker in the back window. Or a bald eagle.
No, so are you talking like American Eagle, like the clothing brand?
Yeah, sorry.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
No, like a bald
This guy's got designer jeans on.
National bird, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So this bald eagle with an American flag. And I'm thinking like a little sticker or something.
Yeah.
And so this guy comes into the office about 2 days later and he says, hey, I think I found your truck down at North Fork. And I was like, awesome. So I raced down there and it is this like screen print, huge bald eagle with an American flag all across the entire back side of the window of that truck. And I'm like, that is a bald eagle with an American flag sticker in the back window. Yeah. But a red Chevy, we'd have never put it together.
I guess that's a good thing about kind of our day and age. We as people like to tell you what we're into, and we like to put it on our cars.
Yep.
Yeah, that is.
My kid was XYZ at this school.
Congratulations.
Yeah, my stick figure family was eaten by Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever that. Like, there's probably plenty of little signs you guys can.
Give us particulars. We need things that'll make that stand out. The person, the incident, the vehicle. So that's great. That's great stuff. So
as thoughtful as you can be.
Yeah.
When reporting anything.
Well, Justin, thanks, man. This has really been really fun. I've been dying to interview a game warden, and I think our hunters and anglers are really going to love this because hopefully we're asking questions, I think, from a perspective of just general intrigue. And, I think you bring a lot of cool stories. Yeah.
As people are out cruising around take that time to visit with them. If the officer's got time, sometimes they're in a crunch to get somewhere or something, and they're trying to get things done, and so they don't always have a lot of time. But if you can get an officer to sit down or stand there on the riverbank or at the check station and just talk to them a little bit, we are very human people, and so if you peel our skin off, it is just flesh and bone under there. It's not robot.
Do you put your pants on one leg at a time?
I do. Sometimes I'm getting older. Sometimes I have to sit down too. So anyways, but no, it's we're a very human group, and we like to hire people that have good people skills and personalities and get along well with the public. So
yeah,
I do have one more question. Is it warden? Is it officer?
So technically it's conservation officer, but you'll hear people call us game wardens. I mean, it's kind of, because other states it's game wardens where you go to, but conservation officer. And honestly, you guys are both full-time Fish and Game employees, right?
Correct.
Classified employees. So you guys are conservation officers. So every classified employee in the agency is a conservation officer. So we could load you in the truck, take you out, and you can check licenses and do Title 36 enforcement.
I would love to do that
for our next brand inspection.
Oh,
because that's part of the responsibilities in there, right? Because livestock rustlers, right? So, but probably won't run into anything like that. But it's the department is, but that everybody has their own specialties, right? Like you guys aren't going to send me out to do next month's podcast,
right?
So
we might.
I don't expect you guys
I'd love to see Ben like a day in the life kind of thing.
Yeah that'd be a fun video series for us to do.
Yeah I'd love to see you check brands.
I'm definitely a desk jockey IT type that doesn't get out much.
You could you may not even know what your potential is till we got you out there.
All right.
My mom says that all the time.
Next month, we're going to saddle up Beery with a mainframe pack, get him across the river to pack out an elk with a float, and then get you back onto the road.
Sounds cold.
And you have to butcher it yourself.
I got an elk tag coming up, so I'll call you the day before we go hunt, and I'll expect you to be in salmon.
When's your hunt coming up? December or January?
It starts middle of November and goes to
November.
December. Yeah,
cool.
So I got about a month, and so that's my shoulder season hunt for the year. So cool. I don't want to tell you when I'm going to go because I don't want all of the people
Beery he might be out there checking licenses and tags.
Well, I don't.
Hunt. I'll watch your back.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Yeah.
I just all those guys that are
area.
wondering, hey, when is the game warden going to be hunting so I can go out and do?
Sure.
We don't want to give away our position.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Strategy.
Jeez,
right. So,
blow his cover.
Yeah. You don't want to blow my cover. Yeah, for sure. So,
Yep. Well, Justin, thanks again, man. We really, really enjoyed
Yeah.
this. Thanks for sitting down with us and giving us the time.
yep, you betcha.
Cool.